If we do have a quorum present, the proxies for this meeting that I have are as follows. Councilmember Paige Ellis has the proxy for Councilmember Natasha Harper Madison. Commissioner Ann Howard has the proxy for Judge Andy Brown. I have the proxy for Commissioner Debbie Inglesby. Judge Oakley has a proxy for Commissioner Clara Beckett. And if Mayor Schrader has to leave, Mayor Morgan will have his proxy. So that certifies our quorum. Public comments, which are not on the agenda item, and those had to have been received by a couple days ago. Do we have any for public comment? Well, the public comment that's not an agenda item, that needs to have already been received by staff, not signing up today. So do we have any of those? Doyce, that would have come to you. Okay, if you can expedite getting that to me, not the ones that are signing up right now. Okay, I need to get this. We'll go ahead, and we don't have anything on item number 3. While we're waiting on that, we'll go ahead and get our report from the TAC, item number 4. Is that you today, Chad?
It is. I saw Gary here.
Oh, yeah. Gary, we have a new head of the TAC. Are you going to let Chad do it? Okay.
All right.
All right, go ahead, Chad.
Okay. Yeah, so we had, at our April 22nd TAC meeting, we had one action item, which was discussion and recommendation on the 2025-2028 Transportation Improvement Program and amendment to the RTP. And the TAC made a unanimous recommendation to the board for approval of the 2025-2028 TIP and the amendment. We also had an information item on the regional freight plan, which is also on the agenda today. And we had an update on the greenhouse gas litigation outcomes from the court cases surrounding that. That's all we had on TAC.
Does anybody have any questions for Chad? All right. We have one individual that has signed up just for something that's not on the agenda, and that is Bill Brock. Are you here, Mr. Brock? All right, if you'll come up to the podium there. Oh, I'm sorry. On the other side, that little podium right there. All right, please introduce yourself and go ahead, and your time starts now.
Hello, can you hear me? There we go. Hi, I'm Bill Brock. I'm chair of a coalition of every neighborhood and church along 1826 in Hays County. We are here to request that you all take a good look at moving forward the widening of 1826. We are, as you know, if you've been down there, really swamped, and unlike some people who appear before you, we actually want you to proceed with construction. Every neighborhood, that's 10 neighborhoods and 3 churches along our section of 1826 have come together to request this speeding up of the TIP. The TIP currently has it at 2035, but we'd like you to move it up. In fact, if you can take a good look at it, move it up ahead of Travis County, because Travis County doesn't have near the traffic load that we do now. That's about all I have to say. We'll be sending you all emails and whatever, but I wanted to make sure you heard it from us today.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your input. Let's see. I'm assuming that most of the folks over there are signing up for agenda item number 8. So we'll move ahead to item number 5. Is there a motion on approval of the minutes from last month?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Delisle. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mayor Morgan. All right, any discussion on the minutes? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We will go on to item number 6. That is the UPWP Amendment Number 3. Teresa, is that you? Yes.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead.
We are here to amend the UPWP, which is the Unified Planning Work Program. It is going to be Amendment Number 3. And what we are doing is including the, hold on, let me pull it up, the CTRMA, which is the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority's 183A added capacity. We are adding that to our UPWP. It's a $2 million study. They will be using local funds. And staff requests that the Transportation Policy Board approve the UPWP Amendment Number 3 and its accompanying resolution 2024-5-6. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Teresa. Is there a motion on item number 6? Motion by Mayor Schrader. Is there a second? Second by Judge Oakley. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Item number 7. Joyce, is there anybody that signed up for item number 7 back there? Okay. Item number 7 is discuss and take appropriate action on the reappointment of the CAT Metro Board member. If y'all remember, we have 2 appointees to the CAT Metro Board. One is Matt Harris, and the other one is Diane Bangle. Matt has done a phenomenal job, and so I move that we reappoint Matt to the position on CAT Metro Board. All right, there's a motion and a second by Commissioner Trevelyan. Is there any comment or discussion?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Harris for taking on that role. These are both two very time-intensive boards, and I appreciate you lending your expertise and help for all of us in both directions. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? All right, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Matt, are you voting or abstaining? Okay, he's abstaining from that vote. Please note that, but otherwise it's unanimous. Thank you on that. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 9, the CAMPO financial audit. Teresa?
Good afternoon. CAMPO has completed its single, oh, there is no slide. Okay, I'm sorry. Has completed its single audit for fiscal year 2023. We had our auditors, Montemayor, Britton, Bender, PC, to complete our audit. Our audit did come out clean again this year. So today we have Sean Bender, who will be reporting on our results, and then he'll take any questions after his reporting.
Hi. I wanted to just kind of give a high-level overview of the results of our audit. It was, as Teresa said, a clean opinion on the financial statements. In our opinion, they are fairly presented in accordance with GAAP. We also did, as Teresa said, perform a single audit because you guys expended more than $750,000 in federal funds. And so that's basically a grant compliance audit. And in that portion of our report, we concluded that you guys did materially comply with all the compliance requirements of your grants. Our report also addresses internal control, not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on internal control, but to help us design our procedures. But if we did run across any deficiencies in internal control, they would be reported in our audit. And for both the financial statement preparation and for the grant compliance, our audit did not detect any material weaknesses in internal control. And yeah, we finished the audit last week. The report's already been submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, so it's pretty much a wrap. Are there any questions on our audit?
Are there any questions of anyone on the policy board? Anytime you have a clean audit report like that, there's so much staff time that went into that. So Teresa, to you and your team and to the folks that help keep that well-run, appreciate it and kudos. So thank you.
All right.
All right. I don't think there's action item on that. That's just acceptance of the audit. So thank you. Okay, we're going to quickly go through item number 10 and 11 because last month, if you recall, we had to shortchange them and we skipped them. And so staff's going to quickly run through those two items. Number 10 is 2050 RTP update.
Thank you. This is an information item describing the process and timeline for the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. I'd like to quickly talk about where the RTP fits into the CAMPO planning process. So the RTP is a federally mandated long-range transportation plan that CAMPO is required to adopt every 5 years. The current plan, the 2045 RTP, was adopted by the Policy Board in May 2020. So the 2050 RTP will need to be adopted by May 2025. So the basis for the RTP is local and regional plans and studies conducted by both CAMPO and its member agencies. CAMPO uses recommendations from these plans and studies to create a cohesive multimodal plan for our 6-county region. Member agencies participate in plan development by submitting projects to CAMPO from their completed planning work. I want to note here that the RTP does not allocate funding. However, projects must be in the RTP to be part of the Transportation Improvement Program, which does set funding. Once projects are approved for the TIP, their respective agencies move them forward into implementation. In the interest of time, I'd like to jump ahead to highlight the tentative schedule that will help the 2050 RTP achieve the May 2025 adoption deadline. This schedule was provided in the agenda materials, and I will not go through it item by item, but I want to point out a couple key dates in particular. The RTP project call application intake period will occur this summer from June to August. A draft 2050 RTP document is expected by the end of December this year, and public outreach is expected in 2 rounds occurring in fall of this year and early spring of 2025. Thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Any questions on that? We just wanted to kind of lay that out because that's a lot of work that different plans kind of build into that, but a lot of work behind the scenes as well with staff working on those different projects. Any questions, comments on the plan? All right, thank you. Nirav, quick update for us on the freight plan.
All right, good afternoon. I will also keep my remarks brief. Essentially, the last time CAMPO had adopted a regional freight plan was in 2008, so an update was warranted. I'll just go over briefly the work that we kicked off in December 2022 and through now. Essentially, the report is in 3 phases or 3 different reports going over existing conditions, trends, and recommendations. And some of the things we've examined were the freight assets that we have in the region. We have railways, pipelines, we have an airport, and we have about 850 miles of highway on the Texas Freight Highway Network. 90% of the freight in this region is moved by highway, by truck, and in this region we also have a deficiency in truck parking. There is no public location for parking in this region. I know that Caldwell County recently got a grant to build such a location, but that hasn't been built yet. Parking is essential for loading, unloading, staging, and to meet your mandatory federal arrest rules. We have a series of 81 recommendations. I will not go over each of those 81.
You might be here by yourself if you do.
There are short-term recommendations, medium, long-term, over those 4 categories you have on your left, and we also included an examination of e-commerce and its effect on our regional transportation network. see. Just for e-commerce, the number of warehouses and fulfillment centers in our region is booming. When I say that, I do not mean that lightly. There's about 15 locations at this facility, 10 of them in this region, 10 of them owned by Amazon. And just to show you how much they're growing, a lot of these locations don't even show up on Google Satellite, which means that the locations are coming in faster than Google can keep track of them. As our population grows, the traffic that comes from these facilities will only increase, and also they take up more space. So as our population grows, there's also going to be the need for more facilities to provide those services. This is just a look at how many trips happen by time, by month. On the right, trips by month. What you see activity happening out of these centers, you see predictable spikes in February and April. There's back to school in August, and then the back to school shopping season kicks off, or sorry, holiday shopping season kicks off in October. There's various recommendations we have for infrastructure. We're recommending implementing a regional truck parking study to identify locations for truck parking in the region. Also to evaluate freight network technologies and how that mixes in with our regional ITS architecture update, which we are working on right now. And then also studying increasing safety using technology for at-grade railroad crossings. There are 47 of those at-grade railroad crossings in our region. 16 of them are Williamson County, and 11 of them are in Bastrop.
Oh, yay. We get
And
60.
finally, one thing I didn't mention earlier was that despite all the freight assets we have, we do not have an intermodal freight facility for rail to truck. So anything that's going to be brought in by rail has to be either offloaded in San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas before being brought in here.
And I know we're trying to get through this quickly, Madam Chair, but I thought this is one of the best moments on our joint CAMPO-AMPO meeting that we had in San Marcos talking about this. And can you expand a little bit more on the lack of having a rail hub? And additionally speaking, and also talk about how the definition of what freight transit has changed dramatically. That's not necessarily reflective of what you're looking at, and why CAMPO's being forward-thinking in this too. I think those things make a demonstrative difference in how people actually look at this issue and why this is a real issue.
Absolutely. So basically, when you want to deliver something quickly and on time, having something that has to be brought in by truck all the way from either Dallas or San Antonio or Houston just expands the amount of time it takes, expands the cost, expands the amount of miles traveled by truck. So having that nearby just allows businesses to deliver their goods faster to this region. I think Ashley wanted to.
I would add to that, because we've now crossed as a region, a population threshold. So what we're seeing is a lot of different companies see us now as a distribution center, not just for the 6-county area, but as far west as Mason, and as far east and southeast as Corpus Christi. They're telling us now, Amazon is telling us that. So having an intermodal facility where we can offload that makes things much more efficient for all of us. But yeah, we've kind of hit the big time, and we need to have an intermodal transfer center.
Because most people look at when they...
Yeah. Finally, we're just going to look at a project gap analysis. Basically, we just did an analysis of segments on our freight highway network that have projects that are funded. The vast majority of the segments in our region are funded. They do have projects identified, but there are portions mostly on the east side of our region that do not have any funding or projects identified. So when you look at priority corridors, they're on the east, just not only factoring where projects are or not, but looking at safety and traffic volumes and locations for freight deliveries. That's kind of what we're focused on. And so our next steps is to get a recommendation from the TAC next week, and then come back to this board for adoption next month.
So,
And that is
thank you,
my
Mayor.
presentation.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate the importance of the freight system, et cetera. When we authorized this contract, I raised questions about the carbon impacts. Can you tell us how the study looked at the carbon impacts and how we're thinking about that?
So in the trends report, They looked at electrification for freight vehicles. They looked at also electrification of truck stops. Electrification of truck vehicles themselves is kind of difficult because of the weight of a battery that's needed to power a semi-truck. So we're also looking at alternative fuels and things like that. But electrification of truck stops is definitely something that we would incorporate when we're looking at the regional truck parking study.
Do we have any sort of assessment of the impact on air quality of the additional freight that we're trying to facilitate with this plan?
That was not a part of this report, no.
So where it's not a part, because I asked for it when we did the contract and was told we couldn't take it up at that time, but how are we thinking about that as we are in this space of non-attainment?
Yeah, what I was just talking with Neerav about is that the mobile emission reduction plan will include looking at that. So we're waiting to kick that off any time now. So that's certainly something we're going to take into consideration.
So while we're on that subject, that study, the mobile emissions one, has been held up for approval by Federal Highway Administration for a little over a year. I was able to speak with Federal Highway Administration on Thursday, and that is now shook loose as of Friday evening. So we already have a consultant in place, the contract's in place, if we can start the work pretty soon. But we can come back to that again when we get to item 8 as well.
And Ashby, isn't it correct that you and staff have been working with AMPO staff looking at it as a regional standpoint regarding emissions and those issues for the last several months?
All right, so thank you, Neerav, appreciate it. All right, we're going to go back now to item number 8, and I think Ryan's going to have a presentation on it, but just from a management perspective, there's a number of people that have signed up, and the public hearing on this item was last month. There's still an opportunity to speak this month, but per what was posted in the agenda that each person will have 1 minute to speak on the item and on item number 8, because we did have ample time last month, but we're also giving you time this month as well. But we're going to hear from the staff presentation first.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, thank you, Chair Long. This is bringing back the item that we had a public hearing on last month. And this is specifically to adopt the upcoming 2025 to 2028 fiscal year transportation improvement program, as well as make an amendment to the regional transportation plan. I'll try to go quickly through this, but I think it's always important to kind of look at the regional transportation plan and the TIP as kind of bookends to the project delivery process. As Will mentioned earlier, the regional transportation plan is where projects are listed, and this allows them to be eligible for federal funding. We do amend this regularly, and we also adopt it every 5 years. The important part is when projects get far enough along in the process and they're selected for federal funding through a variety of different sources. This can be directly from the federal government. It can be directly by this policy board for a certain number of programs, as well as the Texas Transportation Commission and the DOT they select projects for federal funding as well. Once they are selected for federal funding, they're submitted for inclusion in the Transportation Improvement Program, which is then brought forth to the policy board for approval. And so in this way, the region has approval. This allows the funding to be authorized by the policy board, which then allows it to go through the process for being released to the sponsors from the federal government. So the Transportation Improvement Program does cover 4 years, and we do a wholesale adoption every 2 years, which is what we're doing today. We also do amend it regularly to keep up with all of the updates. And again, it is there for the federal, it allows for federal funding authorization. So I do want to kind of talk about what's in the upcoming TIP. This is the largest TIP that we've ever had, and the bulk of it is in the highway and transit individual listings. These are the regionally significant projects that are funded through the Federal Highway Administration as well as the Federal Transit Administration. In the highway individual listings, projects are all listed in the highway individual listings because they're funded through programs at the Federal Highway Administration. In that category, we have $4.6 billion worth of funding. In the transit individual listings, we have close to $340 million, and these are the operational programs for Capital Metro, City of Round Rock, as well as the City of San Marcos. We also have group listings, which I think are important to point out. We have $750 million worth of grouped projects that are grouped, and this is according to their scope. These are based on 12 categories that are approved by the Federal Highway and Transit Administrations, and this allows a faster approval process on the administrative side after the board has approved the Transportation Improvement Program. I think it's also important to point out the project development list, we have about $2.8 billion worth of projects that are going through the NEPA process to receive environmental clearance, and these are projects that will move forward into the TIP once they receive a commitment of funding, once they've gone far enough along in the project development process. We also include local projects that are regionally significant, that are completely locally funded, but are submitted by local sponsors to be included. And then we also have additional sections that include performance measures, administrative policies, as well as additional resources. So I do want to kind of spend a little time talking about I-35, and we saw this last time, and really in the Transportation Improvement Program, I-35 Capital Express project, it's about $4.5 billion of the TIP, but the main project is broken up into 10 breakout projects. And the one thing I want to point out is the project scope and the funding amounts have not changed, even though as TxDOT is refining the implementation plan for this project, they are shifting funds in between these breakout projects, but the overall funding amount has not changed at all, nor has the scope. On the next slide, I do want to talk about the historical timeline of board actions specifically. There's a much longer version of this that we had with a lot of, so I-35 really started in earnest in 1989 with the major investment study being conducted by TxDOT. The recommendation from that study was adopted by the policy board. I think at that time it may have been the Austin Transportation Study instead of CAMPO, but it was adopted into the Regional Transportation Plan in 1994 and has been in the long-range plan ever since that initial adoption. I do want to point out that in 2013 there was a resolution of support for IH-35 adopted by the board. And then in 2014, which is a large year where the Pell study recommendation was released, as well as the Downtown Stakeholder Association released a recommendation. This body also approved operational funding. It was a bulk of funding for Williamson County, Travis County, and Hayes County for operational improvements along IH-35. And then in 2016 is when the board concurred on the funding for the preliminary engineering, and that 35 north and south funding was approved. Those two segments have gone to let in 2022, I believe. So they're under construction currently, but that funding was approved in 2019. And then starting in 2020, as I mentioned, I think when we talked about the deferral process last time, is when the Texas Transportation Commission committed $4.3 billion to the I-35 Central Capital Express project. And then our policy board deferred a selection of regional projects to the tune of, I think it was like $683 million to be, those projects were deferred so the funding could be used for the IH-35 Central project process. I do want to point out that that deferral process, we did commit to refunding all of the projects that were deferred at the time, and we concluded that process last month. We also adopted the 2021 to 2024 TIP, which included the north and south portions. We amended the north and south segments twice in 2021. And then in the current TIP that we're operating under, which is the 23 to 2026 TIP, was the first time that the I-35 Capital Express project was listed individually in the Transportation Improvement Program. We have since adopted several amendments, and 3 amendments in 2023. All were approved, and these are related to the implementation plan and the moving of funds in between the breakout projects. And so we are again today requesting the I-35 project is included in the upcoming 2025 to 28 TIP. And then we will also probably have an amendment cycle in fall of 2024. But these are all the actions specifically taken by this policy board. And I do want to point out that CAMPO staff had a lot of involvement with studies along the way, with all of the studies, the Pell and everything like that. So on the next slide, this is just a visual representation of the projects in the TIP. And I know we got a lot to get to, so I'm going to hand it to Joyce to talk about what we heard from the public. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So the comment period for the adoption of this new tip, as well as the amendment to the RTP, the Texas Smart Track project at the Pickle Research Center, the comment period for those was March 15th through April 16th. So the comment period concluded the day after the public hearing that this board had last month. We had over 2,000 visits to the online open house. We also held 6 in-person open houses. There was one in each of the 6 CAMPO counties, and we chose locations that were adjacent to the projects that are listed in the tip. We had 20 people attend in person. We had 355 comments. Those came in through email and also in person at those open houses. We received, we sent out notifications through email. We've got an email list of about 800 subscribers, so we sent out emails to members of that list notifying of the open house, the comment period, and the online open house as well, and did some social media notifications. We also sent out a press release to media contacts. In addition to the 355 comments we received during this comment period, there was about 250, actually it was over 250 comments that we received after the comment deadline. So the green sheet that you have on the table today it's a link to the comments that were received after the comment deadline. So just know that there were quite a few comments that came in. We also had comments in addition to the ones that were sent to the board for written comments prior to this meeting. You received those on Friday with the presentation email. There were also a number of those that were sent this morning. We didn't have time to process those, but I believe they went to all of the board members as well. So with that information, I'll go ahead and send it back to Ryan for the recommendation from both staff and the Technical Advisory Committee that did review the public comments.
Thank you, Joyce. And with that, we'll conclude the presentation with the recommendation. Staff and the Technical Advisory Committee are recommending that the Policy Board approve and adopt the 2025 to 2028 TIP, as well as the amendment to the 2045 RTP as detailed in Resolution 2024-5-8. And with that, I'll pass it back to Chair Long.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Joyce, for your input. So we've got a number of people that signed up, so we can kind of stick to Robert's rules. I'll go ahead and take a motion and then a second to get the thing open for discussion.
So moved.
Okay, so Mayor Morgan moves adoption.
I'll second.
Second by Judge Oakley. Okay, so it's on the table now. Let's go ahead and get some public comment. And just by way of reminder, you'll have 1 minute, and I'm going to read a lot of names, so if y'all will come up and get kind of lined up by the podium here. And we're going to go through it relatively quickly. Scott Johnson, Santiago, sorry, I was ready to go on a trip. Logan Ott, Mary Rivera, if y'all will come up and be ready to speak, and then I'll call out names as we...
That is a large source of particulate matter, ozone-forming nitrogen oxides, and carbon emissions. What we're trying to do as advocates and as the community is to clean up that. So based on the City Council passing a resolution related to landscaping equipment, I've gone ahead and taken the lead on developing what's called the Central Texas Electric Landscape and Construction Equipment Showcase and Demo Day, which is happening on May 29th in Fiesta Gardens West, and we're going to have some great things there. We're going to have an electric backhoe that has not even been sold out into the market yet, an electric excavator. We're going to have riding electric tractors and many other tools that can help municipalities reach their sustainability goals. I have flyers.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Next, we've got Santiago, and then Logan, and then Mary. If y'all will please come up and be ready. All right, go ahead. Your time begins now.
Thank you very much. I don't really know who I'm speaking to, so I feel pretty nervous and overwhelmed. I showed up here today because I'm concerned about the environmental impacts of the I-35 project in particular. With regard to water, I just walked here through the rain and feeling pretty shaken up. So the EIS statement has an outfall that goes into the Colorado River, and I think that it's been misrepresented. And before this project is approved and funded, I would like there to be a little more due diligence and research on the actual impacts to the river, the quality in particular, first flush effects, and dissolved oxygen levels. And then with regard to that, also, I'm curiosity if I can get a reply. I didn't notice in the tip whether the bridge reconstruction was actually being funded by this, or that's in the UTP, and so
Thank you. Time's
if anyone
up.
could respond to
Appreciate
that. Thank you.
All right, Logan, you're next, and then Mary, and then Cameron, and Mia, if y'all will be ready.
Hello?
Go ahead. Your time
All right.
starts now.
My name's Logan. I live in Pflugerville. First time ever talking, so hello. Driving from Austin to San Antonio is one of the worst things I've ever done in my life. The drive is very dangerous. It's very, very long, and I don't know why I fall asleep at the wheel though, because the road. Anyways, I'm just here to say that we should not be supporting more highway expansion in Austin, especially not in downtown Austin. And instead, we need to consider other modes of transportation like high-speed rail and other things that the funding could go towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we've got Mary and then Cameron. And then after Cameron, Mia, and then Robert Bowler. All right, go ahead, your time starts now.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Rivera. I was born and raised in Austin and currently a resident of the Hayes County, and I oppose the expansion of I-35 through Austin. Studies have shown that widening the highway does not reduce traffic. If anything, it invites even more traffic, and also while widening the highway, it makes the road much more dangerous. Like a couple of months ago, I was recently involved in a car accident where someone was recklessly driving and did not see us and essentially crashed into us. Luckily, everything was fine, but essentially is an example of how highways could in fact be more dangerous if we make more lanes. And as well, it could also destroy the local character of the greater Austin area. That's why it is imperative and wise that...
Thank you, your time is up, appreciate it. All right, Cameron, you're next, and then after Cameron, we have Mia, and then Mia Lynn, I believe, and then Robert Bowler. Go ahead, your time starts now.
All right, I'm Cameron Cassidy, a lifelong Texas native. I grew up in Houston, Texas, so seeing the Katy Freeway, the 26-lane Katy Freeway, gives me opposition to the I-35 expansion, seeing that has not done very good for the Houston area. I would also ask CAMPO to please be the public voice to TxDOT, because TxDOT has not very much listened to the public voice, and I would like for some more investigation onto the environmental impact and yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Next, Mia Lynn, and then Robert Bowler, and then Matt Getzky. Go ahead, your time starts now.
We are here because the future matters. We are voting on what the future will look like. So we ask the question, does this plan make future better than today? And it fundamentally does not. Of course, I'm talking about the 22-lane expansion of Highway I-35. As numerous speakers will mention, expanding it will make our air worse when Travis County air quality already is unsafe for human health. It's also well studied that highway expansion does not decrease road congestion. They actually make it worse via induced demand. So what's the alternative? Worldwide, cities are reversing highway expansion plans and witness hands-on returns in less pollution, more mobility options, and greater investments. We all want fairer and cleaner future capital area. Should you decide to change course, many communities are excited to work with you on that. Please do not vote for any tip that include unconditional funding of the I-35 expansion. My name is Mia. I'm a resident of Austin. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. All right, Robert, if you could hold your applause, we'll get going. We'll keep rolling. Robert Bowler, and then we have Matt Getsky. Sorry.
Thank you, CAMPO Board.
Okay.
My name is Robert Bowler. I'm a lifelong Texan, a 12-year Austinite, and a homeowner. I also deal with exercise-induced asthma, which, by the way, is a great excuse for not going to the gym. But I do carry an inhaler. I get sinus infections 2 times a year, like clockwork most of my adult life. This is courtesy of growing up nestled between 2 interstates and a highway when I was growing up in North Texas. Air pollution is not going to stop at property lines or county lines. Like Travis County air is Williamson air, is Bastrop air, is Hayes air, and so on. Like we're all in this air quality game together, as well as the congestion game. So please don't spend this public money on harming kids' health. TxDOT graded their own homework on this, and I'm asking you to vote for our kids not to fund the I-35 expansion until proper air pollution impact studies are done at a bare minimum. And as a side note, please consider moving these meetings or allowing public comment in a way that people don't have to drive out here. Thank you.
All right, we have Matt Getsky. Your time starts now.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, members of the Transportation Policy Board. My name is Matt Getsky, and I represent Downtown Austin Alliance. We support the inclusion of I-35 in the TIP. I-35 is not only a major corridor for Texas and the U.S., but is one of 2 primary corridors for visitors and workers getting into downtown Austin. This project provides safer access to downtown by reduction of speeds on its access roads, which was only added after City of Austin staff, community, and Downtown Austin Alliance meetings requested that from TxDOT. It also adds safer access for pedestrians through the use of a boulevard technique downtown. This was not in the original design, but after many meetings and hours with TxDOT, the community, and the City of Austin staff, they allowed that addition to be added. The lowering of this roadway will not be able to build those. We've already been granted 2 different federal grants, one with planning, one with construction. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next, sorry, I forgot.
Hello, my name is Christian May. I live next to I-35 with my partner, who has asthma. On bad pollution days, I have to watch as she struggles to breathe. She's not alone. I-35 air pollution is especially dangerous for children, causing lifelong respiratory disease and permanently harming physical and cognitive development, especially for all the kids who go to school just 1 block from the highway, like Buda Elementary in Hayes County, Shadowland Elementary in Round Rock, and Georgetown High School in Williamson County, just to name just a few. With Travis County air quality already being unsafe for human health per the EPA, and Bastrop, Burnett, Caldwell, Hayes, and Williamson counties not even having enough air quality data for either the EPA or the American Lung Association to say if it's safe, it is imperative that TxDOT fully study the environmental impacts of this project before moving forward with any expansion plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Eileen, and then we have Adam.
Hi, Eileen McGinnis with the Parents Climate Community. Yesterday was Mother's Day, and the cards and waffles were nice, but what I really want for Mother's Day is for local leaders to stand up for our kids' air in Central Texas. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Investing in a wider I-35 also means being complicit in worsening children's health in our region. We're investing billions of dollars in more Central Texas kids having to stay indoors on poor air quality days, more school absences, and more emergency room visits. Our region has very real transportation needs that must be addressed, but we've been given a false choice between addressing those needs and a basic ethical imperative to protect children's health. We can imagine and fund alternatives that both improve mobility and air quality. As you vote today, please call to mind the young people in your own lives. Funding the I-35 expansion directly conflicts with our responsibility to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Adam Greenfield, and then Monica Sanchez, and then after Monica we have Lauren Mayer, and then Alexandra after that. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Adam Greenfield, Austin resident with Rethink 35. I'm here to speak in support of the proposed City of Austin delegation's amendment to this item. This, I think, is an extremely important day in history. Our electeds are now openly challenging these projects just sailing through without any kind of consideration for human health. I think this is the beginning of a cultural and political shift that will resonate throughout our lifetime. So I want to thank the Austin delegation for making this motion. Regardless of how you vote, your constituents want to hear what you think about I-35, how you feel about highway expansions in general. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, we have Monica Sanchez, and then Lauren, and then Alexandra, and then Barbara after that. Go ahead.
My name is Monica Sanchez, and I'm a native Austinite. I'm here to add one more year to TxDOT's timeline that was forgotten, and that's 1928. That's the year that the City of Austin's master plan segregated West Austin from East Austin. And if you take a good hard look around the room today, there's less than a handful of African Americans and less than a handful of Latinos in this room. So think about the people that aren't here to speak to you about the impact of this, how this highway expansion will be affecting not only children, but adults as well. Think about your grandkids. How will the highway expansion affect them? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Lauren, Mayor Alexandra, then Barbara, then I'm thinking Jeffrey? Jeffrey. All right. Go ahead, Lauren.
My name is Lauren Maher. I am an Austin resident in District 9, and I'm a student at UT Austin. Before you vote on the TIP program, I would like to give you some perspective as a student and a young person in Austin, particularly in terms of the I-35 expansion. My peers and I often feel intense anxiety when it comes to the idea of highway expansion. We understand the intense need of the expansion and its attractiveness as a solution for our population growth. Yet we don't feel confident in its effectiveness and carry a large concern that the cost will weigh heavy on our future. If you take one thing from the words I say today, I would like you to know that we are scared. Scared that providing funding for the I-35 expansion is the wrong thing for Austin. I urge the board not to pass TIP today and take more time to reconsider the state of the I-35 expansion before providing funding. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have Alexandra, and then Barbara, and then Jeffrey, and then Brandon. I might have mispronounced your name. Go ahead, your time starts now.
My name is Alexandra Sivalov. I'm a resident of Austin, and I'm speaking today about Agenda Item 8. Growing up in Houston, I had no say in the KD freeway expansion and its impacts in my community. Now, as a resident of Austin for the past 14 years, I still feel like I have next to no say in the I-35 expansion plans that will surely impact this community. I feel like nothing has changed in the way TxDOT proposes transportation solutions, but what I know has changed from my Houstonian youth to my Austinite adulthood is our access to environmental impact information and my understanding of the negative environmental and health contributions from highways and highways expansions. I knew the pollutants emitted from car engines were not good for the environment, but now I know the extent to which the pollutants from cars adversely affect children developing and our ability to breathe, especially people with breathing complications like my husband. We need to hold TxDOT to higher standards.
Thank you. Time's up. Next, we have Barbara Epstein, and then Jeffrey, and then Brandon. And Jeffrey and Brandon, if y'all could kind of come on up and be queued up, that'd be great.
Hello, my name is Barbara Epstein, and I'm the president of the Hancock Neighborhood Association. Our neighborhood sits right on the edge of I-35, and what is hard for me to say is that consistently when I come before any government group, we're allowed to speak, but nothing we say seems to make any difference in terms of how you vote. What is very telling today, I'm legally blind, and I called Cap Metro to see about getting a ride here. I was told there was no service. And then I did a trip planner, and there was no bus service here. So the question in my mind was, do you only want to hear from drivers? The problem for us in Austin now is that we have to be thinking about what we're doing for the future. We know climate change is here, and yet we are consistently only planning for more cars. We are not really getting a transit system which is going to get people out of their cars. And my neighborhood is going to come to a halt with the building of the highway. Thank you.
All right, we have Jeffrey, and we have Brandon, and then Miriam. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I'm Jeffrey Chambliss, resident of 33 years in Austin, and while I've been here, things have kind of mostly been getting worse for anyone who's been here and hasn't been like a developer or, small business owner that was lucky. And so when I see things like the I-35 expansion, it seems like it's going to continue to make things worse for me and other people I know who, can't afford to get into some new developments or have like a $800,000 home. And so I really urge CAMPO to try and reconsider that so that things don't continue to get worse like the summer last year or the flooding in 2015 or anything else like that. And I really don't want any of my tax dollars contributing to projects that would continue to make things worse in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Brandon, and then Miriam, and then Shannon Clark, and then Elise. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brandon, and I have lived most of my life in Round Rock. And as someone who almost exclusively uses a bike or electric scooter to travel in Round Rock, I am strongly opposed to the expansion of I-35. Widening highways feels like a step backwards when cities like Austin have already made many improvements in their bike and public transportation infrastructure. As seen time and time again, all across Texas, highway expansion projects will only increase traffic and lead to abysmal air quality. I can't help but ask, is it really worth it to spend billions of dollars on such a roadway that will only worsen our quality of life in the long run? As I often cross I-35 to run errands, I feel that expanding it or making it far more dangerous for people on bikes to get to places that they want to go. As such, I implore CAMPO to please not vote in favor of anything that provides funding for expanding I-35. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got, if I can turn that off, it's going to, all right, Miriam, and then Shannon, and then Elise. Go ahead.
A family had to leave my neighborhood because their kid could not sleep through the night. Their kid could not sleep through the night because he couldn't breathe. And he couldn't breathe because of I-35. After talking to their doctors, it was recommended that they leave the neighborhood and their kid's health situation resolved. This is an anecdote, but it is not an anomaly. I don't know if any of you have ever struggled to breathe or been with somebody struggling to breathe. As someone that's experienced childhood asthma myself, I can tell you that it is utterly terrifying. Our council has made the most reasonable of asks. Refusing to support the resolution put forward by our council today amounts to forcing a whole bunch of tire soot into children's lungs for the next century without being willing to study the impacts and how to mitigate them. Failure to support this resolution is not just an abdication of responsibility. It would be full-out cruel. I hope you support it. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Shannon Clark, and then Elise, and then after Elise, we have Edgar. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Shannon Clark. I live in District 1 in Austin. The Katy Freeway, the country's widest highway, was completed in Houston in 2008. Now, 16 years later, 25 miles of the highway are on TxDOT's list of most congested Texas roads, with its 4 sections ranked from number 34 to number 7. Unsurprisingly, Houston has been on non-attainment status for ozone for years. In short, after billions of dollars, the air is bad and the traffic is still bad. What do we do when an expanded I-35 continues to top TxDOT's congestion list just a few years after being built? Do we keep expanding, increasing pollution, noise, and dangerous traffic, demolishing homes, schools, and businesses to make way for cars? We need a comprehensive transit system that will increase options for everyone, not just drivers, and that will not degrade our air and gut our cities and neighborhoods. We can't do this as long as we continue to sink our resources into subsidizing highway expansions. This is a huge waste of money on a Sisyphean task that will only degrade our health and well-being. Thank you.
Time's up. All right, next we have Elise, and then we have Edgar, and then Anush. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Elise. I'm a native Texan. I'm a homeowner in 78723, District 1. Thank you for being here today and listening to us. I'm here today to ask you not to vote on any transportation improvement plan that allows funding for I-35 expansion. There's so much I could say about how harmful and counterproductive expanding I-35 would be, but I'll use my tiny minute to note that our Texas highways are already some of the deadliest in the nation, and I-35 is the deadliest in Austin, and that is not an inevitability. That is the result of design, policy, and budget decisions like the ones you're responsible for right now. Widening the highway inevitably makes it more deadly because it means adding more points of conflict to a high-speed roadway. Let's not do that, please.
All right, thank you. All right, Edgar, and then Anush, and then Cutter, and then Eric. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Edgar Handel. I'm a resident of East Austin, where I live with my wife and children. I'm also vice president of Aura, an organization that advocates for a sustainable Austin that's accessible to all. I grew up in a working-class Hispanic family. I remember one of the apartments we lived in, which was next to a major arterial and highway. It made me sad to learn as an adult of the health impacts put on families and communities like mine, and that this kind of land use and transportation planning continues today. I think that we should consider very carefully what we do, and I think there's a lot of potential in bodies like CAMPO to plan for a better future, not only for Austin, but for the whole metro area. I thank the people who have brought forward this amendment to reconsider the funding for I-35 expansion and to ask for something better. And I hope the amendment can be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Anush, and then Cutter, and then Eric. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anush Razian, and I live in Austin with my 2 kids and partner. I oppose the expansion of I-35. We should not be funding more highways and adding more lanes and cars to Austin. It will only make the air quality worse and increase health concerns. It's our responsibility to protect Austinites young and old. I hope you support the Austin delegation's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Cutter, and then Eric, and then McKenna. The cute moment here. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
All right, thank y'all. I'm Cutter Gonzalez. I'm a 7th-generation Texan, a proud resident of Austin, a geographer by training, and a PhD student at Texas State University. I'm here because I'm concerned that we're just doing more of the same. We're caught up in business as usual, thinking things are inevitable when they're not. I was born in Houston, Texas, where I had to watch and still have to watch my grandparents and my aunt suffer from intense respiratory issues because of the choices bodies like this made for that community. And they suffer to this day. I moved back here. I actually went back to Houston for graduate school at the University of Houston, and I moved back to Austin as a matter of choice because I believed we were doing something different. I'm grateful for the responsible action on part of Austin City Council, and I'm so thankful for their leadership on this, and I hope that today when I leave I can feel that way about CAMPO as well. After all, and right now I lead a local book club on urbanism.
Thank you. Time's up.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next we have, let's see, that was Cutter. Now we have Eric, McKenna, and then Isaac, and then Gabriel. Go ahead.
I'm Eric Keilberg. I'm an 8-year resident of Austin and grew up in Central Texas. Having lived most of my life on the I-35 corridor and experienced the expansion in Temple, I strongly oppose any expansion in downtown Austin. Before moving to Austin, I spent a couple years in Dallas. I remember boating on Lake Lewisville and gazing out further in the distance and seeing a yellow-brown haze on the surface of the water. So that's where millions of North Texans go out to relax and have healthy recreation, and they don't even have the privilege of clean air while they do that. So if that's the effect that, coincidentally, I-35 crosses Lake Lewisville. So if that's the effect that freeway pollution has on a lake 20 miles outside Dallas, what effect will it have in downtown Austin and Town Lake? Doubling down on adding thousands of cars in a compact urban area is going to turn our invisible air quality problem into a visible air quality problem. And I don't see how the presumed benefits of this expansion could possibly outweigh the obvious costs and effects.
All right, next we have, let's see, that was Eric. Now we've got McKenna, and then Isaac, and then Gabriel. Go ahead.
My name is McKenna, and as someone who has worked in healthcare for my entire adult life and just finished my first year of medical school, I am incredibly frustrated by the choices being made by the government and surrounding entities for blatantly covering their eyes and ears to devastating impact these plans will make to our community. The current state of our infrastructure has been attributed to thousands of emergency room visits, hundreds of cases of strokes and lung cancer that could have been avoided. The rates of asthma in our children are increasing, largely ascribed to our chronically bad air quality, and this proposal has been estimated to double the pollutants in our air, meaning you will be causing more needless ER visits, crippling hospital bills, and deaths. How can you in good conscience ignore these numerous studies with reproducible data is telling us? How would you tell a young mother whose child is sick simply because of the air we breathe, the only thing short of moving is treating her symptoms and with expensive medication and treatment due to the highways that we have? In medicine, we have a term called a never event that refers to a subset of incidents that would be so catastrophic for the patient that we have very strict practices in place.
Thank you. Time's up.
Thank you.
Next, we have Isaac, and then Gabriel, and then Grace. Go ahead.
I'm a long-distance runner who crosses I-35 at least once a week, and I think we can all agree, whether you're commuting across on foot or by car, the highway is a problem. I'm also a mathematician. I fell in love with the city when I moved back here for grad school, and like the members of this board, I'm in the business of solving problems. TxDOT's proposed expansion comes with a laundry list of costs. It will pollute our city, destroy businesses, homes, public gardens, and schools, will both directly and indirectly lead to the deaths of many Austinites for years to come, and worst of all, it will further entrench our city in an awful state of car dependence, one in which car ownership is a prerequisite for basic participation in society. For such astronomical costs, TxDOT's plan solves nothing. We've known that for decades, and they've known for decades, that expansion worsens the traffic it purports to solve. Why do we entertain plans made in bad faith with such drastic costs when we know it will improve nothing? As an Austinite, a mathematician, and a believer in common sense, I'm deeply offended by this expansion masquerading as a solution when it solves nothing. I implore the board to vote against allocating any funds towards the expansion of I-35.
Thank you. We have Gabriel, and then Grace, and then Christina. Go ahead.
My name is Gabriel Britton. I am a native Texan and current resident of Austin, and I was raised on the tenet that we should be leaving a place better than we found it. I-35 expansion is not doing that. It'll destroy businesses and take away homes for an, at best, temporary solution in traffic congestion. And we know, based off of evidence, that traffic congestion will come back because of induced demand. It's a well-documented phenomenon that TxDOT has just continued to ignore. Is that really leaving things better than we found it? We've seen it's ineffective in LA, we've seen it's ineffective in DFW, we've seen it's ineffective in Houston. It's arrogant to assume that we're going to be different. Furthermore, the expansion of I-35 saddles taxpayers annually with tens of millions of dollars in maintenance for a quote-unquote solution that has repeatedly been demonstrated to be ineffective. Is that leaving it better than we found it? The impacts on environmental, social, and safety, are those impacts leaving things better than we found it? I oppose any transportation improvement plan that includes expansion for I-35 as it makes our Texas worse. Thank you.
Okay, Grace, is Grace still here? I don't see Grace. Is Grace not here?
I thought there was one more before me.
Okay, and then after Grace, Christina, if you could come up and queue up, and then Elena. Thank you, go ahead.
Hello, CAMPO. My name is Grace Gilker, and I'm on the plant team for Festival Beach Food Forest. Is a volunteer-run garden on public parkland. We're right next to I-35. I lead monthly plant ID walks for the public there, and I help with the gardening. I've now been organizing mitigation efforts in the face of a potential highway expansion for the past year. We've been in regular communication with TxDOT over the last 13 months. The folks we've spoken to there have done what they can to try and address our concerns, but it's not even close to the harm currently proposed. Y'all have an opportunity to help push TxDOT into an uncomfortable position, but it's only from that position that TxDOT can make the changes that are crucial to the health of our communities and, frankly, decades past due. From a fiscal perspective, it would be foolhardy to proceed with a budget that hasn't been updated since the pandemic. CAMPO has the opportunity to recenter transportation policy in the state around regular Texans. I urge y'all to stand up against this rushed sprint to start construction and refuse to sign this blank check. Please help me return to my former status as a dirty volunteer who plants trees. Thank you.
Time's up. Okay, just For policy board members, we've had 32, we've got 12 left, so just so you know, time check, or 13 left. All right, let's see, you're Christina, right? Then we have Elena, and then Hayden, and then Addie. Go ahead, your time starts now.
Hi, my name is Christina DiStefano. I am a resident of Austin, Texas, and have been since 2015. I would request to oppose the expansion of I-35. As mentioned before, widening of I-35 and other highways increases traffic by law of induced demand. When the supply of something is increased, people will utilize it. This theory applies to traffic and increases our car dependency, which undermines recent and ongoing initiatives in the city of Austin to increase mobility. One of those was voted to remove parking mandates in the city of Austin. Another one was, this also undermines the efficiency of public transportation by encouraging the use of low occupancy vehicles. Also increases urban sprawl by encouraging low occupancy vehicles on highways.
Thank you, time's up. Next we have Hayden, and then Addie, and then Sean. All right, go ahead, your time starts now.
Hello, my name is Elena, and I live in the Cherrywood neighborhood in Austin. And I am here to say that I think 22 lanes is just crazy, and it's not going to do any good. So I sincerely hope the people sitting here are not just going through the motions of listening to us, but really hearing us. And that's about it.
Thank you. That was Elena. Next we have Hayden, then Addie, then Sean. Go ahead, your time starts now.
Hi, I'm Hayden Blackwalker. I was born and raised in Austin, and I've been asking for a better I-35 for more than 11 years now. TxDOT did not study or consider particulate matter 2.5 in their environmental review. TxDOT was told it was an issue in the draft EIS stage when they could have done the needed studies. They knew that PM 2.5 limits were about to be reduced because PM 2.5 is so dangerous for humans. I met with TxDOT staff to make sure they knew that the changes in those limits were coming. They did nothing about it. They rushed the FEIS, issuing it concurrently with a record of decision with no public comment. They never measured existing air pollution next to the highway. They never studied PM 2.5 after repeated asks. The communities directly impacted need to understand existing levels of pollution and need to understand what this project will create in the future. And by the way, there's 70 years of data that show that expanding highways doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was Hayden. We have Addie, Sean, and Kevin. Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Addie Walker. I'm here both as a private citizen and as a representative of Reconnect Austin. Reconnect has completed extensive research the expansion of I-35 will have on air quality in our region and the subsequent public health impacts. Particulate matter pollution is guaranteed to worsen with this expansion, and those health impacts are disproportionately borne by children, seniors, and communities of color. TxDOT has not completed the extensive analyses on the public health impacts of particulate matter pollution that this situation warrants. And on February 7th of this year, the EPA finalized its new lowered national ambient air quality standards for PM 2.5 for I-35 in the tip until these extremely pressing public health concerns are fully understood and fully analyzed. I would also like to add, please don't dismiss the enormity of public turnout today. All these people are here today in the middle of their workday.
Thank you.
Because they care.
Time's up. Sean, and then Kevin, and then Jordan. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Moothart, and I am here today in opposition to any tip that provides funding to expand the footprint of I-35. As all highway expansions have shown, widening I-35 will make traffic worse. Air pollution will worsen with the increased number of vehicles driving, even as the state moves towards EV adoption. A recent study from Emissions Analytics found that tire tread wear emits nearly 2,000 times the particulate matter than vehicle exhaust does. This is at a time where Travis County is already failing EPA's standards on particulate matter. Therefore, I ask that CAMPO value the health and safety of Central Texans. Please do not provide funding for this expansion project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kevin, and then Jordan, and then Connor.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm an Austin resident. Don't have a ton of time, but I want to share with you what made me into the person who's standing here today, doing something I hate, to speak against the expansion of I-35. I worked in Europe expecting only to be close to family, but coming back, travel teaches you about your home. And having seen public transportation and mobility work for less money, it's frustrating to come back here and be told it's impossible. And I choose this issue specifically because it encompasses all things. I ask you, how many people in your neighborhood do you connect with when you enter your garage, get in your vehicle, and check yourself out at the grocery store and come back? What do you learn about the people you live near and represent? Who else would be here if getting to this meeting was easy for all regions of Austin? Or if you could hear about this meeting from your neighbor, or a conversation you had on the bus, or the headline of a newspaper before you got on a train? Instead, roads disconnect us, and we choose to hear only what we want to hear, and it costs us as humans time and energy. I'm not here only because of what I believe in, but I'm here because I feel an obligation to
impact youth for generations. The location of this public comment is entirely car dependent, casts a shadow of suspicion about the motivations of this body to have that here. There's 1.5 miles at least to walk from the closest public bus stop to get to this location. On top of that, this highway is a monument to the segregation of Austin, and you are doubling down on that legacy by expanding it. I'll just finish with this quote from a children's book about bicycling. "We speed by the drivers who watch us ride past. I bet they wish they could go this fast."
Thank you for your time. You'll have to save that one. Thank you, appreciate it. We have next Connor, and then Nima, and then John. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Connor Gibson, and I oppose any tip that includes any funding for Interstate 35 expansion. Prior to living in Austin, I lived in Greater Houston alongside a portion of Interstate 45, which has the unfortunate distinction of being one of Houston's widest and deadliest roads. I've come face to face with induced demand, where I-45 has been widened many times in my lifetime without seeing any meaningful reduction in travel times. In addition, I, along with several of my friends and relatives, suffer from respiratory conditions such as asthma that are only exacerbated by air pollution. To put it succinctly, highway expansion impedes our very ability to breathe. With all of this in mind, I was dismayed to hear that the tip before you includes unconditional funding for expansion of Interstate 35. The Austin area already exceeds thresholds considered safe for human health for pollutants such as PM 2.5, and the expansion of I-35 will only increase our levels of air pollution. In addition, the belief that expanding highways will reduce traffic is dubious at best, with the multitude of research showing that improvements to other modes of transit, especially rail and buses, is actually the best way to combat traffic, not widening highways. I therefore urge all of you to oppose any tip that includes unconditional funding for I-35 expansion for the sake of all residents of Austin.
Next, we have Nima, and then John, and then Anat. I'm sorry, I probably didn't say that right. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Nima Rahman, and I'm a lifelong Texan, medical student here in Austin, alumni from the University of Texas, and 7-year Travis County resident. I oppose expanding I-35 throughout Austin, especially as a medical trainee and as an advocate for my patients, both young and old. Kids living in Travis County are already hospitalized for asthma at a significantly higher rate than U.S. children overall, with the highest rates of ER visits and hospitalizations across the country occurring in eastern Travis County, a rate 60% higher than the national average. Ultimately, expanding I-35 will make our air worse, leading to catastrophic health consequences that we see every day in our ERs and in our hospital rooms. And as a future healthcare professional here in Austin, I strongly urge you to consider this. Please do not vote for any transportation improvement plan that includes unconditional funding for I-35 expansion, and vote for the amendment that withholds I-35 funding until air quality studies are completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is John, and then Anat, and then the last one will be Jessica. Go ahead.
Hello. My name is John Bankson. My family lives in Cherrywood, just east of I-35. We live a few blocks from I-35. I teach at UT. Both of my kids have attended Maplewood Elementary School, which is also just a few blocks from 35. As we walk to and from school or just around the neighborhood, my kids will often notice the noise or the quality of the air, the smell, and they'll ask me, unprompted, what's going on? Sometimes I'm just not sure what to say. Frankly, I'm worried. I'm worried about my kids' health and the health of other children in the neighborhood and at Maplewood, where hundreds of students gather and play every day. I assume we're all familiar with the scientific research now that just shows, uncontroversially, the negative health effects on everyone, especially children, of this sort of pollution from fumes of exhaust and also from particulate matter from tires. This is all dangerous, breeds asthma
Thank you.
and
Time's
other
up.
conditions. Thank you.
All right, I'm probably not saying that right, I'm sorry. And then the last would be Jessica. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. My name is Anat Shechtman. I live in Cherrywood in East Austin, and I own a house that's within a third of a mile from the highway. I'm here today because I have two young and active boys, ages 8 and 11. They love playing outside, playing soccer, throwing a ball, reading a book. My younger son is a student in Maplewood Elementary. That's also within a third of a mile from the highway, and he and his buddies play around every day outside, close to the highway. I'm very concerned about the implication of the expansion of the highway for my children's health and the health of all children in the city who live so close to the highway. And I'd like to ask you to withhold funding from the expansion until further air quality studies are being done, and moreover to ask TXDOT to work on acquiring funding for caps to improve health air quality. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then last is Jessica Riley. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jessica Riley. I'm a resident of South Austin, and I support the amendment resolution. In addition to the harmful direct impacts on Austin residents, the proposed 22-lane monstrosity will also fail to serve those in surrounding areas. Commuters will face increased traffic congestion traveling into the city, as expanding road capacity is met by a proportional increase in traffic congestion. This is the fundamental law of road congestion. Expanding and widening highways lead to longer commutes with heavier traffic, in addition to greater sprawl. This is not enhanced access. Our suburbs deserve better. I understand that this project has many powerful and wealthy vested interests, and it may feel bold or revolutionary to cast a vote preventing it. However, it is not radical to assess harmful outcomes and make decisions that best serve your constituents. There is often a disconnect between community and policymakers, and at this moment in history, CAMPO has the chance to prove this wrong by voting in the interest of community voices. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Chair.
So we've got,
Chair Long, sorry to interrupt. I saw there was another speaker that had come. I'm not sure if it's too late if someone.
So we picked these up earlier, and we had to cut it off at some point in time. So, but we've heard from over almost 40-something people. So, all right. So that concludes the folks who signed up on that item, and I'll open it up for any discussion. But I think there's a number of things that were stated in part of the public comment that I don't know accurately necessarily reflect the public record or what actually happened through the part of the process. Tucker, I don't know. There's a few things that I think might in terms of, there was a comment about listening to the public. How many public hearings, do you have the data on all the different public who had their own, but you all had yours as well?
Well, of any project of this magnitude, we of course go out to the public many times and get feedback, and official public meetings, ad hoc public meetings with elected officials, neighborhood groups, constituent groups, stakeholder groups, and we've had over 23,000 in-person and virtual meeting participants, 242 with community members and leaders, over 50 public meetings, 9 what we called voice meetings where we helped scope the project, agency coordination and workshops, 63, and then the required public meetings and virtual public meetings and hearings, 4. But that's what's the minimal required. Many of the other ones is what we had to shape this project. But I'd like to make a few comments.
Wait, Tucker, one second. You said, what's the minimum?
4 of the official public hearings and public meetings as part of the FEIS.
And how many did y'all have?
Oh, we had the 4, but we also had 9 voice meetings, 242 meetings of community members, 50 public outreach with organizations and community and neighborhood groups, 63 agency meetings, including the City of Austin and Travis County, and then just receiving feedback, over 23,000 feedback and emails and phone calls and correspondence with individuals as well.
Okay.
And you didn't listen.
Go ahead. Anything? And I want to say the time for public comment is up. And I would ask that you refrain from any comments that we've heard y'all. It's the time for the policy board now. So please do not interrupt again. Tucker, go ahead.
So I would like to comment on, and I've received all the letters, much common ground that we've received in those thousands of interactions and meetings that I just mentioned, and how we've changed and incorporated much of the public feedback that we have over the years. And this project has been, as you saw what Ryan had presented before, decades in the making. And especially in the last 4 or 5 years, as funding scenarios started to come into play, and we were putting together our EIS document. And I'd just like to talk about some of the high-level themes that we heard throughout all of the public feedback and the letters that we received, and even what we heard today. And just so our board is fully informed of the things that we've incorporated into the project and how we have collaborated with the city and the community members. And one of the themes that I've read and heard today is the citation of I-35 being just a dividing line between the east side and the west side of the city. And we recognize that. And one of the design changes and things that we're implementing is we are lowering I-35. The upper decks have been seen as that visual separation between east and west since the mid-1970s, and recognizing that that'll be lowered. But in addition to lowering the upper decks, we are lowering the elevated sections through the downtown area as well, so that visual barrier will be removed. The highest elevation on this corridor will be where the frontage roads are today, with everything else being lowered. And what that's done is set the footprint and has allowed us to design the capping opportunities, or you hear the cap and the stitch, and we hear about reconnecting east and west, and very proud of the work we've done with the city and setting the stage for those reconnections to be able to be done. And we're working with the University of Texas and the City of Austin for those enhancements and setting up funding plans to get those involved as well. Another theme that we have heard and many times is we ought to be focusing on transit. Well, this project really is a combination of a highway expansion, but really that expansion focuses on transit and high occupancy vehicles. The vast majority of the additional lane miles that are included in this project are going to be HOV, managed lanes, and transit priority. So that the single occupancy vehicle, which is a goal of the cities in their climate action plan to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicles, this project goes to great lengths to address that, with the additional capacity being, for the most part, transit and HOV lanes. So in order to use these lanes, you will have to have more than one person in a car, in a carpool or a van pool or a bus, or emergency vehicles, obviously, will be able to use those as well. But in addition to the HOV and the managed lanes that we're providing, we've partnered very closely with Cat Metro and Austin Transit Partnership, and we're incorporating into our design, specifically at Riverside, an interchange that will accommodate the future Blue Line that Project Connect is proposing, and working very closely with them. And we are grade separating the red line with Cat Metro's red line at 4th Street and at Airport. So today, if you're familiar and you're on the frontage roads and you come up to 4th Street or at Airport and a train's coming by, the arms come down, everybody stops. And so we'll be grade separating those. So the vehicles, pedestrians will be at a different elevation, a different level than the red line train, which makes all the movements work together much more efficiently, makes it safer for vehicles and pedestrians and bicycle riders and any other modes of transportation that'll be grade separated. We've heard that the character and the feel of this should be a downtown and an urban feel with a boulevard section. That's something that was fairly new to us, and through our interaction and our public meetings and hearing that, our design team has done a tremendous job of taking that back, and we've actually converted the frontage road system into a boulevard section. For the most part of the downtown core, from Hawley to Dean Keaton, we have joined up the frontage roads. So typically your frontage road system on an interstate roadway. You have the frontage roads on both sides, on either side of it. Well, we are crossing over the northbound frontage road at Holly and bringing it over to match up. So it will be a boulevard. So that's as a direct result of the public feedback that we've received. The other thing that is another benefit of matching that up and having a boulevard section is the increased capping opportunities. There are opportunities where someone, both in the UT footprint and in the downtown footprint, where someone could walk from one side of I-35 to the other side of I-34 without crossing any frontage roads. The capping will be continuous from one side to the other. But even outside of that, we're having protected crossings at the intersections that we'll be redesigning, and with all of our ped and bike facilities there to take advantage of the caps and the stitches and the community spaces that will be reconnecting the east and west side of the interstate. And finally, I've heard many comments today and through the responses that we had received about just the hesitancy and the treacherous nature of bicycles and pedestrians, and that's something that we recognize as well. And that's why we're incorporating all of the different modes to work together with shared use paths the entire length on both sides of the footprint of the project, and the widened east-west connections corridor will be rebuilt. Or the ones that haven't been rebuilt, some of them have been rebuilt in recent projects, but in the downtown core, they'll all be rebuilt. They'll have a 20-foot buffer between the edge of the travel lane for vehicles and the shared use path. We are working with the City of Austin and stakeholder groups on what the aesthetics of those will look like. And we want to match the aesthetics of those projects to match the character of the city and really fit into the downtown and the urban core that has been requested. So those are just some of the highlights of the feedback that we've taken and incorporated into this project. And I've heard that this will look like some other specific projects across the state, but this is a unique opportunity to build the boulevard and lower the highway, provide caps and stitch opportunities for UT in the city, and really to reconnect the communities on the interstate highway.
Tucker, the one thing that unless you were getting ready to do it, that we missed was raised about you didn't do adequate environmental studies.
So I was going to get to that next, Chair, so thank you for that. And the inference in the letter that we've seen from the city and the revised or the amended motion that was placed before us is that we've not done the adequate environmental studies, and that is not the case. The final environmental impact statement was completed last summer. It met all federal requirements, not only the minimum requirements, but we conducted environmental studies and impacts with the community over and above what's required for the federal requirements. But with that said, I recognize that the couple of studies that the city has asked us to consider moving forward is very important. It's important to the community, it's important to the city, it's important to CAMPO, because CAMPO was one of the sponsors or is the sponsor of one of those studies. And what I've committed to and our team is committed to all along is when these studies are completed, and I'm not sure what the timeline of those will be, but we're at a point right now where we are finalizing the design on some of the projects. But others, and this will go into phases, won't go to let, or we won't have bid openings until 2026 timeframe. Whatever findings come out of the city's program and the CAMPO study will certainly incorporate those findings or best practices or whatever the recommendations could be and are possible. So every change that we have made through public feedback and public input, and even future ones, are for the betterment of the project. And we're looking at this as a whole. This still is an interstate project, and it carries upwards to 200,000 vehicles a day. In our region, it continues to grow, and people arriving here are going to use a variety of modes of travel, and that's what this project does. It partners with ATP, Project Connect, the City of Austin, bicycle and pedestrians, and we're very proud of the solution that we've proffered on this project. And the final thing I would say, one of the other items in the revised motion, if it comes to the table, is opportunities to fund certain elements, and we've worked very closely with the city, supporting their grant applications. They've been successful on a couple of grants on caps and stitches, and we are incorporating those into our projects, and also provided some loan opportunities that the state sponsors in going forward and to see if they are be able to take advantage of that in some of the funding opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Tucker. Mr. Vice Chair.
Tucker, one question regarding the environmental study. I consistently heard about PM 2.5, and obviously we're aware that not only the state, but the federal government's looking at that over and over again and seeing about that. Currently, we have not been found this specific region regarding non-attainment regarding that. But are you monitoring that to make sure to see what will happen in the future? And as you said, that take into consideration from that, because I think that there's been a disconnect with people thinking that that has been established right now, and it hasn't, but also that there's a flippant attitude about any possibility of that happening in the future.
Yeah, we were aware that that was coming down the road. So when we did our environmental clearance last summer, we were not in non-attainment, and today we're not in non-attainment, but we do see what the PM 2.5 limits have been set at. But as we heard last month at this meeting from TCEQ, that won't be finalized, and the non-attainment designation finalized. Write anything into our project that we can to minimize that, whether it's in construction specifications and minimizing particulate matters and covering trucks and watering down the dirt and the construction areas. It's something that's standard on most of our projects, and we'll certainly do that on I-35.
Okay, thank you. Yes, council member.
Thank you. I would like to offer an amendment to the base motion as outlined in the red line version that we, the City of Austin delegation, asked to be distributed last week, in which I handed out in hard copy. Once I have a second, I'd like to speak to the motion, as would others in our delegation after
So
I introduce it.
that's would be an alternative.
It can either be an alternative
Well, there's already a motion
or
on the
we
floor.
can do it as an amendment.
So there's a
However,
motion on
either
the floor,
way,
so what are you proposing?
I was
An amendment to the
proposing
motion.
to amend the
Okay.
initial motion
All right, is there a
by ours
second?
with the red line.
She wants a friendly amendment.
Okay, there's a second by Paige, sorry. Go ahead.
Councilmember Ellis.
Yeah, sorry. Had a brain freeze there for a moment. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I will speak to the motion now. And first, I appreciate, Tucker, your comments and the many ways that TxDOT did work with the city and the surrounding community. And I think that, as put forward by our delegation, and I'll simply speak for myself, the intention here is not to say that TxDOT didn't work with us on different aspects and never listened to the community. That is not what we are trying to communicate. And so I just want to be very, very clear on that we do appreciate the many ways. I'm not going to delimitate them again, since you went through many of those things. But last week, my colleagues on the Austin City Council and I submitted the board a proposed resolution that would approve the proposed TIP with additional policy direction. The intent of the resolution is to address two main points. One, for several years, the I-35 project has had a major impact on the availability of funding for projects that are needed in our respective communities and throughout the region. Two, both jurisdictions that this project passes through, the City of Austin and Travis County, have expressed concerns about the overall impacts of the highway expansion on air quality at both the regional level and on the neighborhoods along the I-35 corridor. This resolution addresses these points by doing the following. First, requests that TxDOT work with the policy board in identifying state and federal dollars that could be used to accelerate projects needed in communities across the region and to help fund the cap and stitches over I-35. Two, slowing down a bit on I-35 will provide us time for us as policymakers to understand how the expansion will affect air quality and how we might address those impacts, especially in response to new air quality standards set by the EPA for fine particulate matter. As CAMPO members, we have each received emails from hundreds, if not thousands, of concerned Austinites and members of Travis County directly impacted by this proposed expansion. As City of Austin representatives, whether or not our district is located in I-35, we have worked with our colleagues who directly represent those parts that are butting I-35. And again, we have heard that air quality is a major concern. We offer this amendment today because we believe that we need to make fully informed decisions. That includes completing the air quality modeling and emission reduction studies that both the City of Austin and Travis County have requested. These are all regional in scope and very important. We do so mindful that I-35 construction will last a long time and that we need to get this right from the start. I know my colleagues want to speak, and after they do, I'll have some questions as well.
So is there any other comments from?
One question.
Yes, Mayor.
So I've served on this board for a while. Has the city of Austin asked for any of this type of resolution on any of the other projects that are going on that are under tips and stuff? Because I don't really remember any similar resolutions. So I'm just curious, all of a sudden, this resolution is up.
So I've been asking for us to talk about air quality since I've been on the policy board. You'll recall that we finally got a presentation about what it meant if we went into non-attainment.
I think the question was any specific projects other than I-35.
I understand that, but we have been asking about the air quality. And I-35 is not just any project. It's right through the middle of our community.
I've asked you all to please control the clapping. This is our time to discuss. Y'all need to contain that, please.
So I-35 is not just any other project, and I could detail the many ways that it's not. But throughout the time that we've been on this body, we have been asking for TDM modeling, we've been asking for air quality. We just had discussion about the freight plan, and I had asked us to be looking at the air quality impacts, what it means for a very long time. We asked for, the mobile emissions policy that we mentioned here to be done, that study. So I think that we've been asking for this. I-35 itself, though, merits the studies. And, some of my questions after will be about, what was actually studied in the NEPA study.
So any other questions about the city's proposed amendment? Or are we ready? Because we need to vote on that amendment, and then we'll go back to the original motion depending on what happens with that recommendation. Councilmember. Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to daylight, where I was on this issue today. I have another very major highway construction project currently happening in my district. It was all the way down the pipeline before I had been sworn into office, and it's one that has caused a lot of consternation in my community. And I don't share this to say I know any better than anyone else, but I know better in 2024 than I knew in 2019. I can at least admit that to everyone. These issues are major. There are major issues with air quality and lung health, especially for our children, for seniors, for anyone who's had cardiopulmonary issues, which we probably all know someone who has had that. I sit on 2 air quality boards that are closely monitoring the PM 2.5 and the ozone issues that are coming our way. And I'm just trying to do my part to make sure that at the end of the day, I can say I did everything I could to make sure that we're taking the proper data and taking the time to make sure that if there's anything else that can be added to this project to make it better for the people who interact and live and work near this particular expansion, that we've asked for everything that we possibly can. So I know Councilmember Harper Madison couldn't be here today. She has an injury that she's recovering from. So I won't claim to speak for her, but I know that it's very near and dear to her heart to make sure that folks who are growing up near major highway regions have a chance at not being sick when they're trying to go to school and not having their grandparents with ailments that they can't deal with. We heard from some of the speakers today that they had neighbors who had to move because they have children who can't sleep at night. That's something that we all should take into consideration. City of Austin has big city growing pains. Not every community is feeling the same pain the same way, but if there's anything we can do to share tips and tricks with each other, I do want to make sure that we are looking at the city's plans for climate emission reduction. CAMPO, as it's been said before, we've already approved the money to try to get our mobile emission reduction plan in place. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't have a door close on us, and I'm back in the same seat that I was in 2019 where it was too late to do anything about it. So I'm just trying to share what I know from my district in Southwest Austin, and hopefully that information is something that folks can consider along the way.
And Councilmember Ellis, I love the way you put that, because I think for many people here, they're thinking that, well, they just don't care about the environment, or there's nothing being done in the environment, or they're not monitoring the environment, or they're participating in any sort of studies that go ahead and corroborate what's occurring from there. And from what I'm hearing from Tucker, that's not the case. I mean, as somebody who's been down here for 26 years, dealt with everything regarding the black lands and everything that's happened regarding the segregation in this town and this region for so long, to be able to have an opportunity to go try to fix those things, and just like you said from the front end as from the back end, I absolutely totally agree with that. What I'm hearing though, and this is where, I mean, again, I'm not the expert here, is that the environmental studies that are approved by the Biden administration itself, that the ability to actually look at PM 2.5 to not something you're paying lip service to, but in fact is monitoring on a rollabout, which I think that we won't even know until 2027 or something like that at the earliest, those things will continue to happen. And that's, I mean, and you're right. I mean, we know how it is in this region. You either get allergies or are taken away. You know how these things, and we know people who truly have issues regarding what's happening with the air quality for our kids and everybody else here with that. So I'm hoping what I'm hearing is those that that's still happening and that's occurring, because I don't want you to have a case where, just like you said, man, we could have fixed this issue. I remember in 2000 in undergrad, we had a whole vote regarding what we would actually look at regarding transit in this region, and that was a missed opportunity. But we don't want to have another missed opportunity as well.
So thank you. And Councilmember Fuentes.
Thank you. Yes, colleagues, thank you so much for consideration of this amendment. It's really quite simple. It's asking that we delay construction until we have this important data back from both of the environmental studies that are out there. Both Austin City Council and Travis County Commissioners Court have passed resolutions asking for this information. That's how important it is to us. And we are asking for your support today. There's also language in this amendment that asks to work with TxDOT to identify additional funding for the caps and stitches, to identify additional funding for other area projects throughout our region. And we know that this project, it impacts all of our communities alike, both commuters and residents, and so we all have a vested interest in ensuring that this is the best project as possible. And for us who have family members and community members that live along this highway, it's important that we understand the impact that this construction would have. I do really quickly want to read a statement from Councilmember Natasha Harper-Madison. As a council member who represents a substantial portion of the communities who will be directly impacted by the I-35 expansion, it is imperative that we stick to our shared commitment to addressing the historical consequences of I-35 that have caused inequities that still linger today. This amendment we are proposing is part of the solution to navigating both the environmental and exclusively the issues caused by highway expansion in order to ensure that our infrastructural investments align with our community values and priorities.
All right, thank you. Commissioner.
I can only imagine the pressure that the Austin delegation has received relating to this project, and I understand that they are responding to their constituents and listening to the concerns that are being expressed about this project. With that said, I know there's been 10 years or so of votes related to this project, many by the City of Austin also, during that process. There have been many discussions, many sacrifices made by the communities represented in this room to delay their own projects, and a colossal effort on the part of the Highway Commission on assembling $4 billion from other regions in the state to target towards this project. I understand the concerns. I know they are honest and real, but I believe that Tucker and his team have demonstrated that they hear you and have made many modifications to this project over the years to address those concerns as they come forward, and I believe they'll continue to do that as these studies come forward. But I think it would be fiscally irresponsible to do this at this point, delay, and jeopardize that funding. It's not like the $400 billion we can target.
$4 billion. I wish it was 400.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean 400. The $4 billion can be targeted towards other projects in this region. I believe if the funding were jeopardized, it could just be lost altogether. So I'm ready to vote whenever the rest of the board is.
All right. So just one clarification on that. The $4+ billion is Category 12, commission discretionary, which Commissioner Terrio was talking about. That was allocated by the Transportation Commission. We have no say in what they do with that discretionary money, so that $4 billion, there is no guarantee that that would stay in the region. And then just to clarify, if I understand it, the TIP does not have a delay mechanism. You are either in or out of the TIP. So you can't delay something. This would just simply be, with the city's motion or recommended amendment, it would pull it out because you can't just delay it. And it has to be fiscally constrained, and then it would circle back. And quite frankly, if the commission, if the board's action today were to pull this out, I would be hard-pressed if I were commissioner to want to fund stuff in this region for quite a while. And I think we'd see that money go away. But I think let's go ahead and, so right now we are going to vote.
We have some other questions, Chair, if we might.
So we're going to give you a couple more minutes.
For the policy board, this is a major decision, and I think we should be allowed to ask a few questions.
We've got a couple more minutes. Go ahead.
So my first question for Tucker is, in the NEPA study, did you study PM 2.5 or ozone?
Go ahead.
So, when we were
introduce yourself real quick for the record. No, you're on. Just introduce yourself.
So, when we were going through the studies, there was not the EPA hadn't set a limit, so there was nothing to study against. And there still isn't, right? So there's nothing to study it against because we are in attainment right now. So there was no requirement to study PM 2.5, and so when you asked us to do it last year, we didn't know what the level would be, so there would be nothing to compare it to.
Did you measure, anything about what would be expected with respect to ozone or PM 2.5 when you did the studies?
We did a whole greenhouse gas study. It's in one of the appendix. It's several hundred pages. That was not something we've ever done before at TxDOT. We did that study, and I think that's a testament to us going over and above what we were required to do.
So I want to be really clear. I think this for us is about getting this right and understanding that we're making decisions that are fully informed and that are taking in mind future generations. We didn't have the NEPA back and approved, as I understand it, when we voted. We certainly hadn't gotten certain questions answered about what it contained in terms of the environmental protections. We now have new statements, whether you agree with them or not, from the Biden administration about this level. And if we go over that level, there are huge impacts for all of our regional projects that happen. And if I-35 contributes to further non-attainment, it's going to make it even that much harder to get all of our other projects done. This is not a trivial question, and I think this is a new, relatively at least in terms of how we're thinking about them after we saw what the environmental study included or didn't include and what we know now. I think that these are very important questions for us to be asking and for us to be moving forward with those. Some other questions that I have for Tucker are, there was a public hearing held on February 9th, 2023 for the draft EIS. What was the response from the community?
So, before you go down this list, I'm a little concerned that you're asking him questions that there's no way he could have showed up to be prepared for. And
so I can tell you that most of the comments were not in favor.
So if it's a rhetorical question, go ahead and answer
I understand that, but we all ask rhetorical questions, Chair. When was
Madam
the public
Chair, I'm
hearing?
going to call the question.
Really? This is a major decision, and you're not even going to let us ask? This isn't, may I tell you why this is important? This is important because we have suggestions.
Councilmember?
We have suggestions that the public comments were not included in the NEPA.
Here are leaders that are here to speak for.
Ma'am, this is your final warning. Please do not interrupt again.
I will leave because you're displacing all of us.
Ma'am.
Environmental impact that we deserve. Our generation.
Ma'am.
Our family.
Ma'am, if you would please, please, thank you.
I would leave. This
Go ahead.
diet is wrong.
So,
Y'all just crazy.
Chair, I don't have that many more questions. It will not go on very long. I'd appreciate
there's,
the opportunity.
if I'm correct, under Robert's rules, when there has been a request to call the question, we have to vote on that.
No, it needs a second and it needs a two-thirds majority pass.
Okay, so.
Sorry, what would you just say?
It needs a second and a two-thirds majority to pass.
Yes.
So I'm not the Robert's Rules expert here. Tim, if you'll check into that. I'll give you one more minute to ask your other question.
So when the TTC approved the public comment period for the February 2023, that was in December of 2023. Did they have the comments in hand when they approved the NEPA study?
So I think the question was, did the commission have...
There were no comments in August of 2023. There were only comments in February of 2023, and they were not delivered to the TTC until December, but the NEPA report was approved in September. And we've heard this over and over, and I would like some clarity on
So
that.
what does the commission have when they're voting? Do they have the availability of the comments?
The Texas Transportation Commission?
Yes.
When they're voting on what?
On accepting the study on the record and decision.
The commission doesn't vote on accepting the record and decision. That's an environmental division review, independent review, and sign off.
Okay. And so did they have the comments?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to get clarified.
All right. So I think we will go ahead now and vote on the Austin recommended amendment. So if you're a yes vote for this is a yes for Austin's amended language.
Chair, can you summarize what the amendment language would be?
So the amendment language is what they gave you, what you got in writing on via email on Thursday, but the main things, if I mischaracterize it, it would be they're requesting to delay I-35 and to ask for an acceleration of other projects in the region and complete air quality studies.
May I comment? Is it appropriate
Yeah.
to? Because I want to reiterate. Thank you. I want to reiterate the commitment that we have made in it.
Question with a two-thirds vote of the majority.
Okay.
And I may have rolled it into my other comments, but looking at what this delay would do, and the studies that are being requested, we are at a point right now where we can incorporate whatever findings or recommendations come out of the two studies that are specified in this. We're at a point right now where we can incorporate it into our design for the projects that are being bid in the 2026 timeframe, or if we have projects under construction. And actually, it doesn't even need to be I-35. It could be any project that we have under construction. If there are ideas and concepts and best practices that are a result of these studies, we can incorporate those into current construction projects by change order. So delaying the funding on this project is not necessary for us to implement the findings of these two environmental.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam
Yes,
Chair, if I could.
Commissioner.
I hate to see our votes reduced to a gunfight at the OK Corral. You know, I think there are still ways for us to continue to work together. When we have asked Tucker and his team to go and sit with somebody, to go and talk with somebody, to reason with somebody, he has never said no. I think it's important for us to recognize that there are some concerns that we need to be not only aware of, but that we need to embrace. But then also, you know, none of us can look at, when I moved here, August 29th, 1985, this was a completely different city. This city has more than doubled in size. And all you have to do is drive up a frontage road and try to get on 35 at 38th Street or go south at 6th Street, and you know that dramatic change is necessary. And at the end of the day, if we can continue to work together to make improvements, if we can commit to listening to each other and addressing issues, I've seen a lot of change on highways, and a lot of that change has been good. Nobody can argue that what has happened on 183 has not been effective. Nobody can argue what has happened on North Mopac with the lanes that have been put in place hasn't been effective. If you had to take your kids to school on 685 before the changes on 130, you took your life in your hands every morning.
Yes, he did.
At the end of the day, we can reason together, and we can work together, and we can do things as a group, because a lot of the interests of our urban community are shared by our suburban and rural communities as well. And if we agree to be reasonable with each other, and to be fair with each other, and to listen to each other, we can do this with a whole lot of fighting and pugilist activity. Just want us to see that significant improvements are necessary, just for safety's sake. You can't drive through the city of Austin on 35 and think that's safe. It's not. It was built for a time that is no longer here. That's right. And we have to work together and figure out how we can do the best things for safety, but also for air quality as well. That is a significant issue, and we should take it very seriously. But we should not make everything life or death. We should not make everything you or me. We've got to figure out how to do it for all of us. At the end of the day, when we talk about mass transit, Project Connect has 5 right-of-way projects that are going to work right through here. If we are serious about mass transit, then we also have to be serious about how we connect east to west, how we connect north to south. I am comfortable and confident with the commitment that we will listen, and we will incorporate, and we will take the best science and make sure that we do the things that are necessary to protect our communities. I think that's what our community is asking for. What we have to demonstrate, vote after vote, project after project, is that I've heard you, and you can trust me to do the right thing.
And Commissioner, you said it best when you talked about the best science with that. I think that in general, that's what we've seen over and again, working with that. And there's a commitment. Tucker, correct me if I'm wrong here, and this is where, to your point about not just making it a gunfight about what's going on here, it sounds to me, Councilmember Alter, that what Tucker is saying is that he can incorporate the concerns and the studies that you'd like to see inside of the project right now without having to delay the project itself. And that's a demonstrative thing to talk about. 1, taking seriousness the issues and concerns that are brought up. 2, taking the practicality of what happens with this project. And 3, getting everyone with a consensus together, trying to move forward to make sure we have the best project that can be.
Not only the concerns, but the results of the studies. If it makes sense and fits into our project, we can certainly incorporate those.
Mayor, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add another lens too that will be very much impacting my vote in that. So unlike most of the people who spoke today, I'm not from here. I grew up in the Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C., and worked there until 10 years ago when I moved here. And every morning I would drive out of my way to go park by the Metro bus stop and take the high-speed bus into the city on lanes that were reserved. And I would sit there and look at all those cars slowly creeping along the Dulles Toll Road and Interstate 66 in that bus. And same thing in high school commuting that same way. I'd always make sure I carpooled because we had HOV lanes. And I think that's the thing that's so important about this project, and that's what's been lost by in the dialogue. There's absolutely no doubt. We talk about PM 2.5 or ozone. I think we haven't talked enough about climate change and the impact of greenhouse gas emissions in this conversation. There's no doubt that we need as a region to maximize the options to get people out of cars. But I don't know how you do that without having dedicated HOV and managed lanes that are accessible to people of Round Rock and Georgetown and Pflugerville. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that really don't have another option. Because those buses that go up that way now are stuck on I-35 with everybody else. So why take them if you could just be in your own car?
All right.
Leander and Cedar Park, we're lucky. We got the red line, and, you know, that's why I live there. But for a huge swath of our region, this is the best bet to get them people out of their cars and give them real commuting options. And so, and voting against this amendment is not because I'm not worried about the environmental impact, because I'm worried about the environmental impact of delaying, which I think is real progress for the region.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and vote now on the amendment. And so a yes vote is for the City of Austin's amendment. And we can do it by raise your hand. That way it'll be easier for staff to count. Okay, so all those in favor of the City of Austin's amendment, raise your hand. Okay, so we've got one. And you've got two, right? Okay.
Yes,
so
I have Harper Madison's proxy.
Okay, so Councilmember Ellis, Harper Madison, Ms. Patillo, Councilmember Fuentes, and Councilmember Alter. Okay, so that all against. All right, so that motion fails. So now we're back to the original motion on the table.
Are we recording who voted which way?
Yeah, I just read them out.
It might be helpful for a record vote so that the public is aware.
I just stated it.
There were some people I didn't see
here.
raise a hand either time.
So there wasn't any abstentions, correct? All right, so the 5 people.
I hear you say against, and I didn't ever raise my hands. I'm voting against the City of Austin.
Right, okay, so the 5 people that voted for it were the council members from Austin plus Amy Patillo. So, and then everybody else is against the amendment. All right, so now we will go back to the original motion on the floor, which is to accept the recommendation as presented in the agenda.
No, Madam Chair.
And I'll move, that's already on the floor,
Yeah,
right?
it's already on the floor, right?
Okay, yeah, all right.
Chair, I have a quick question.
We're done. Yes.
Is there a way to separate out the Capital Express project from the others in the list? Because I would like to support the others in the list, and I just want to make sure before voting if we could do that.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that. That historically, we have never done that, and I think it would probably go to a vote much like the same previous vote on that.
Okay, I just wanted the record to reflect I support the other projects in the list.
Totally understand. All right, all those in favor of the motion on the floor?
Before we vote, I would just like to have in the record, what Tucker said about his commitment
That's what I was going to ask.
to incorporating what comes out of these studies and addressing concerns about air pollution as he moves forward.
I think, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, I think he said where you can. I mean, I don't know that on the floor today he can commit to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Well,
you
the
go ahead.
studies haven't either begun or haven't finished yet. So we will review all the findings and the recommendations in the study where it makes sense, where it fits into the projects. We certainly can incorporate, but we'd have to review each of those recommendations.
Of course, I would expect that due diligence and nothing less, but what my ask was really to make sure that that's reflected in the minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the floor. All in favor of of the 2025-2028 TIP and then the amendment to the 2045 plan as detailed in the packet and the resolution, please raise your hand.
Yellow belly liver.
Okay, and so all those against?
Abstain.
Okay, and all those abstaining? Okay, so Ms. Patillo, I'm sorry, which way? Okay, so the City of Austin, so there are 4 against and all the rest are in favor. The 4 abstaining, sorry. All right, so the motion passes unanimously with 4 abstentions. All right, so now we are going on to the Executive Director's Report, item number 12.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't have a whole lot to report. The only thing I will report, so as part of the conversation we had in San Marcos with, between the two executive committees, so the one for CAMPO and also the one for the San Antonio MPO, one of the things we talked about was the greenhouse gas emissions final rule that had been put out by the Environmental Protection Agency before that meeting. At the time, we told you that there had been at least 2 lawsuits filed on that new standard, one filed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, the other filed by the Attorney General in Kentucky, but representing 20 additional states, so 21 in total on that lawsuit. Both lawsuits have received a judgment. In both cases, the greenhouse gas rule was struck down. There is an opportunity for the Federal Highway Administration. I said EPA, but I should have said Federal Highway Administration. There is an opportunity for Federal Highway Administration to appeal on that, and the date for the appeal deadline is May 27th. So we should have a final notice on that pretty soon. So, and then one last thing I will say, Madam Chair, and not to sort of relitigate what we just voted on, but just so folks are clear about the mobile emissions study that we're doing, it does not look at individual projects. What it looks at is strategies that can help mitigate air quality.
So that was item number 12. Then item number 13, we will not be having a June and probably not having a July meeting.
Perhaps not August.
And we're not sure about August yet, so stay tuned. We will have a TAC meeting in May, but that we will not be having that June policy board meeting. And then also, I will be sending out to the policy board members the executive director evaluation tool, probably sometime in the July timeframe, and ask for your input back for that. And then we'll get that, and then I'll call an executive committee meeting, and we'll do that evaluation to bring back at, if we have an August meeting, or then, or for sure the September meeting. Commissioner Howard, did you have a question?
I had hoped Ashby was going to share good news.
Oh, I did earlier. Do you want me to say it again?
Well, I didn't hear it. So I don't know. I've been here the whole time.
He talked so fast.
What good news were you hoping to hear?
So I didn't understand it.
So advanced, and when we submit for reimbursement, they wouldn't have paid us.
Yeah.
So it had been held up for a while, and thanks in part to Commissioner Howard calling Federal Highways, it helped push some things internally over there, and I received an email from Federal Highways approving, providing the necessary approvals, so we can start on that work.
So Commissioner Howard, do you now have a new job?
I didn't just want, a job. Do we already know what exactly we're going to be studying?
Turn your microphone on.
And been cut off. There we go.
So just real quick, before we get too far off, that's not a posted agenda item, so.
Okay, well, how about whenever we meet again? I just think based on all the conversation we've heard last week at court, the advocates were very concerned that, no studies had begun. And so maybe we could get a written update if this moves over the summer while we're not having meetings.
Oh, absolutely you will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, so with that, we will adjourn, and I want to, I guess most of them have left, but thanks most of the audience for being respectful. I mean, I appreciate them sticking to our time frame, and just appreciate that.
Madam Chair, another thing we've heard over and over is about this location, and I really want us to change locations.
Okay.
So I wanted to make, and you're right, everyone's left, and this is probably one of the most frustrating parts of this. It sucks, I should have brought it up at the beginning. I was actually going to bring it up right when we ended public comments. Ashby, let's be clear. We have an agreement with Cap Metro to bring them up to the station that's 1.5 miles away, and then we have an agreement, and we have funding through Lyft to bring anyone to this meeting that needs to be brought to this meeting. Is that correct? So I'm going to ask Joyce to respond. Okay.
Sure. When we moved to this location in 2021, we knew that the bus access, the transit access, is definitely a challenge. So we set up there is, on every agenda, you'll see in the footer, information on how to request a transportation voucher. So you can, if somebody wants to attend using that voucher, they can ride the bus. There's a bus stop at Mesa and Spicewood Springs. There's a larger transit center near North Cross Mall. I think it's still called that. There is also the transit center at 183 and Lamar. And then there's also there's a number of transit stops along Jollyville Road as well as the Pavilion Park and Ride on 183. So able to use that voucher. Many ride shares, you do need to access that by smartphone, but we wanted to ensure it was equitable. So we also have a phone number that voucher can be used to set up a ride.
So Joyce, all I ask is this, is that, I mean, I feel like this is brought up 3 or 4 times a year. I don't know where we're advertising this. Can we put it in a better place for the public to see that? No, I know. I'm just telling you. I mean, we hear about it all the time.
Like even on the website.
Yes.
The very bottom, because it's on there, but it's.
If you had on the website where you go to get the agenda, I had never noticed that footnote until just now, and didn't know about this program until just now, and I think I'm fair.
Okay, so you would have been in trouble if the teacher gave that test and said, read the whole thing and get to the bottom and said, just write your name and turn it in, right?
I would just suggest if we can put this the lawyer, right? If we can just put it somewhere more prominent.
Okay.
So we can move that. We can
put that in a better place. And at 4:15, I think, is that what time it is? 4:15, we are adjourned.